This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Forces allied to the internationally recognized government in Libya make gains in fight to control the capital, Tripoli. The largest military port terminal in West Africa completed in Nigeria using Chinese standards. And Africa celebrates its famous footballers after they helped Liverpool to become the champions of Europe. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta live in Nairobi. For those of you joining us across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. China issues a white paper on trade frictions with the United States. And in Tunisia, Muslims, Christians, and Jews share breakfast in symbolic gesture of peace and religious tolerance. We begin in North Africa, where fighting in Libya continues in the quest to control the capital, Tripoli. An early morning attack by the UN-backed Government of National Accord on Saturday pushed back forces loyal to Khalifa Haftar. The assault happened in the Al-Sawani district southwest of Tripoli city center. Haftar's Libya National Army launched an offensive to take over the capital in April. Witnesses spoke of several shells randomly falling on houses belonging to civilians. GNA spokesman Colonel Mohammed Muganuno said the forces managed to take control of new locations from the LNA forces, specifically in the area of Ain Zara. Well, to West Africa, where Nigeria's Navy has held a completion ceremony for the reconstruction of the Lagos Apapa military port terminal project. The initiative was undertaken by the China Civil Engineering Group. The project started in July 2016 with a total cost of $22.7 million. The military port includes 6 new jets and 2 new slipways. It is currently the largest naval military terminal project in West Africa. The upgrade of the Apapa military port terminal will not only provide berths for replenishing and overhauling various types of ships of the Nigerian military, but also provide a strong boost for the Nigerian Navy in combating piracy and maintaining maritime security. And moving to the Horn of Africa region, airstrikes in Somalia have targeted militant groups in recent months. CGTN's Abdulaziz Billo reports from Mogadishu on how this particular campaign is changing the country's counterterrorism efforts. Let's take a look.
The U.S. military has stepped up attacks against pro-Islamic State affiliates and Al-Shabaab militants in northern Somalia, with 6 strikes conducted this month in the mountainous region of Puntland, northeast of the country. Close to a dozen militants have been neutralized near the Golis Mountains, where the 2 rival factions are battling for control. U.S. officials say that the strikes are vital and have contained both groups from expanding territorial control in the autonomous region. Hussein Sheikh Ali is a security expert and leads an institute that is analyzing ISIL's increasing footprint in Africa. He argues that the strikes have been effective, but more must be done.
Somewhat contained as far as the usual raids and attacks that they were conducting on the ground. They're still doing it, but in a very limited scope right now. So it seems their strikes have significantly slowed down. The forces on the ground, who are the Somalis and the AMISOM, should be making more advances on the ground.
The pro-ISIL faction is estimated to have less than 200 fighters, mostly former Al-Shabaab combatants who shifted allegiance. It's being led by this man, Abdul Qadir Mu'min, a former high-ranking Al-Shabaab official who fell out with the group in 2016. Both groups have in recent months stepped up attacks in the port city of Bosaso, in the Puntland region near the mountains.
IS Somalia has been very small and also very insignificant in impact on the ground. They have the appeal, global appeal, and also they have been trying to change and make inroads within the Al-Shabaab fighters, who were the most of their fighters originally came from. But they now seem to be constrained, and Shabab have pushed back.
The two rival factions here in Somalia have clashed on several occasions in a move experts here say is a fight for financial resources. Their main targets include big corporations from which they impose hefty taxes to sustain their operations. For now, neither group is winning, but it's civilians and the business community that continues to suffer in the ongoing insurgency campaign. Meanwhile, authorities hope to secure the nation and defeat militant groups, denying them a chance to establish a safe haven in the Horn of Africa. Abdul Aziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Still on Somalia, the United Nations Refugee Agency now says it has assisted over 4,000 Somali refugees now back home from troubled Yemen. This comes amid a conflict that has seen many locals and migrants suffer food and medical shortages. According to a UN spokesman in Yemen, most of the migrants were Somalis who were seeking a better life in the Gulf. However, some were born in Yemen to refugee parents. Somali migrants make up 90% of the refugee population in Yemen.
UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, says that almost 4,300 Somali refugees have now returned home from Yemen. Since the rollout in 2017 of an assisted spontaneous return program facilitated by UNHCR in cooperation with humanitarian partners and authorities in Yemen and Somalia. In the latest departure, a boat carrying 125 Somali refugees departed Aden on Wednesday afternoon. The vessel arrived at the port of Berbera in Somalia yesterday morning, bringing home men, women, and children in time for the Eid holiday.
Uganda's Ministry of Health says samples of food distributed in the northeastern part of the country were free of any heavy metals and pesticides. 4 people died and over 200 were reported to have fallen ill after consuming fortified foods early this year. CGTN's Leon Sayenga has more.
Investigations by Uganda's Ministry of Health, the World Health Organization and the World Food Programme and other government agencies have revealed that the super cereal did not contain aflatoxins or any other causative agents. The tested samples were collected from the World Food Programme warehouses, health facilities and also patients' homes. In March this year, 4 people died after consuming the distributed cereal. Over 290 people also fell sick. The World Food Programme says the fortified food came from a Turkish supplier. The WFP has since suspended distribution of the food from the said supplier. Independent tests have also been carried out on the super cereals from other suppliers. Leon Sanyanga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
The Nigeria Independent Electoral Commission is working with civil society organizations to provide equal access to people living with disability to vote in future elections. CGTN Samson O'Malley reports that the Access Nigeria campaign is advocating for change in the voting and electoral process to accommodate voters with disabilities.
Yes, we can. Show we can. Change Africa.
Grace Jerry is a disability activist, human rights advocate, a musician and one-time Miss Wheelchair Nigeria. Grace set up the Access Nigeria project in 2016. It is the largest campaign ever for people living with disabilities who feel their needs are not being considered by Nigeria's electoral process.
You know, the general perception is people with disabilities don't come out to vote. But then when you look at the barriers that are everywhere, barriers to polling unit access, barriers to election materials, barriers to even voter education, captured in an accessible format. These are barriers that are just enormous. And that is why we keep recording very low turnout of people with disabilities in Nigeria's electoral process.
Working closely with Nigeria's Independent Electoral Commission, she says the campaign achieved a major milestone during the 2019 general elections.
For the first time in the history of Nigeria's general election, in 2019, the INEC piloted the use of the Braille ballot guide for the visually impaired community, deployed nationwide. There was election day written instruction for the hearing impaired, magnifying glasses were deployed, and priority voting also was given to people with disabilities, and this is as a result of sustained advocacy.
Amai Obea became visually impaired 12 years ago. Despite the successes of the Access Nigeria campaign, he says he still experienced discrimination at the polling station during the recent presidential elections.
They saw that at least I'm partially sighted, and they were telling me that I'm not disabled because they were not seeing me with clutches or with a wheelchair. So through that, I was a little bit disappointed, and I have to ask for the assistance of my close friends there to assist me so that I'll be able to place my hand where I'm supposed to thumbprint.
The Independent National Electoral Commission says it is working to create a better voting experience for people living with disabilities in the next election.
Like between now and 2023 is still a long time. I'm sure with more collaboration with the Commission, I'm sure a lot of these things will be improved upon.
Part of the improvement the Access Nigeria campaign is asking for is to get the National Independent Electoral Commission to establish disability desk offices and to ensure they are aware of all people living with disabilities who are eligible to vote. The current campaign, if fully implemented, will ensure that no citizen is disqualified from voting because of his physical disability. Samson Omale, CGTN, Jos, Nigeria.
You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. We have lots more news coming your way after the break, including Africa celebrates its famous footballers after they helped Liverpool to become the champions of Europe.
For look at some economic data out of the country. The country's foreign currency reserves.
With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives. News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's talk a bit of football. 4 African players have added their names to the ever-growing list of UEFA Champions League winners. Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, Joe Matip, and Naby Keita entered the list following Liverpool's 2-0 win over Tottenham in the finals on Saturday. Now, Liverpool's first attack saw them win a penalty when the French forward handled in the box 24 seconds into the match. Salah stepped forward and converted the penalty. In the 58th minute, Klopp brought on Origi, who had scored twice in their semifinals comeback against Barcelona, and the Belgian forward was at it again, beating Hugo Lloris in the 87th minute to seal Liverpool's first Champions League title since 2005 and their 6th European top club competition victory.
I don't want to explain why we won it. I only want to enjoy that we won it, and all the rest is not important. It's for all the people around the world in the stadium. They are with us, and they are now celebrating like crazy. And whoever's tomorrow in Liverpool, and we will celebrate together. We will have a sensational night. I feel mostly relief, to be honest.
It's so painful, but in the same time, we need to be calm in the way that we are going to talk or analyze the things, because I think we need to feel proud. The season was fantastic to finish on the top 4 and play the finals for first time in the history of the club. it's a thing that is going to be painful because we lose the final, but in the same time we need to be positive.
Yeah, of course. I think we control, especially the first half, we control the game, and we have, I don't know, 2 or 3 chances. We and some corners, of course. They defend well and they play well as well. And the second half we struggle a bit because they make us pressure and they try to press us high. And it was a bit difficult for us, but yeah, we never give up.
It's hard to describe with words. It's special. As Champions League is something unbelievable, and I think for everyone right now, it's just about enjoying the moment and just sharing the moments with family, friends, supporters, everyone.
Egyptian football fans have anxiously been waiting for this moment to see their favorite star Mohamed Salah gets a second chance in the Champions League. And with his opening goal, he didn't let his fans down.
The match was very beautiful. Mohamed Salah is always an inspiration to all of us. I feel like he exerts effort to please his Egyptian fans. I'm more happy that he scored in the final.
Mohamed Salah is a source of joy for the Egyptian people. We are all following the Premier League because of him. We loved Liverpool because he is our pride.
Mo helped bring the Champions League trophy back to Liverpool after 14 years. In Egypt, though, he has made a much bigger achievement. He has become the first Egyptian in the sport's history to participate twice, win and score in such a final.
It's an indescribable feeling to see an Egyptian playing in the Champions League final. I had a feeling Salah would win. It's great to see history in the making.
Mohamed Salah is definitely an outstanding Egyptian player. No one else comes close to the number of records he has achieved in Europe. With this year's second Golden Boot and now the Champions League title, he has set an extremely difficult set of records for any other Egyptian footballer to break. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
And we are not done just yet. For more on this UEFA Champions League finals, we are joined by Adel El Maraki in Egypt and Modoshiru Shitu in Nigeria. Gentlemen, thank you both for taking time out to join us here on Africa Live. First things first, I'll start with you, Adel. There were euphoric moments in Egypt from the very beginning of that Liverpool match-winning performance. Can you tell us more about the growing adoration for Mo Salah?
Mohamed Salah is becoming an icon in Egypt, someone that is an inspiration to generations. All of the younger generations who are football fans, sports in general, look up to Mohamed Salah as the role model, the example of someone who lived in a rural village in a remote governorship no one has heard of, to become one of the most famous players in the whole world. So that success story in general in Egypt has been truly inspirational, has made him a trademark, has made him a brand in his own, of course. You'd see his jerseys being worn by young Egyptians playing in clubs and walking in the street, even if there are no matches. And it's that kind of inspiration that has made so many people get attached to him. And people are looking forward to more of his success, even if it's in European competitions and records that he has been breaking in Europe. People still relate to it because that's an Egyptian who has achieved such a thing. And that's how powerful his playing is and how it has such a huge impact on so many people here.
All right, I want to bring Modoshiru Shitu into the conversation. Let's talk about this in depth. Mr. Shitu, the Liverpool win was greatly realized through the efforts of other African players. What does this mean for African football?
Yes, I think it means the future is brighter than before. That's to say that we are closer to having a second African player that will win the World Best Player of the Year. The last time an African has done that was George Weah in 1995. Ever since then, there have not been anybody closer to having the best player. But at this moment, we are in the stage of the world football. It seems that we'll be having the likes of Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, who have done so well for African football to get that. So for us to get the next Africans to get the Best Player of the Year award after George Oponwe, this is the moment and this is now. And it also means that the inflow of African players to Europe the gap is going to be widened at this time, because these players we are talking about, the likes of Sadio Mane, the likes of Mohamed Salah, and the rest of them have done so well for African people. Africans players, young players, look forward to them. So there will be influx of players from Africa to Europe because of what these players have represented to the rest of the world. So soonest we will be seeing the second African that will win the African World Player of the Year.
All right, well, it's right back to you, Adele. After this performance by a galaxy of African stars in the Liverpool and Tottenham side, what should we expect from the African Cup of Nations that Egypt will be hosting shortly? Adele.
People are expecting huge competition. This is the biggest African Cup of Nations yet, 24 teams, which means that the competition will be thrilling and first of its kind. And with the number of African players rising significantly in the Premier League and all over the world, many people are quite excited to see them in person on.
Well, I apologize for that break in communication. That was Adel Al-Marouki and Madushiru Shitu breaking it down for us and explaining just how successful Liverpool have been in with the use of African players. But we have one final question for you, Shitu, if you're still hanging there with us. How have African football players been growing in global stature over the years? And most importantly, what does the future hold for African football players? Shitu.
Yeah, the future is very, very bright and very, very bright. And what that means is that there will be more African young players who want to practice football than any other sport. Football has taken the stage of world sport in Africa. So rather than any other African young players trying to do any other sport, everybody tends to go towards football. And that means that every other sport in Africa will have to wait for a long time before it has to come to the same level with football. And what does the future mean? It also means that the continent might suffer, because as a result of young African players going to Europe to trade their professional football, because you know the rate at which young African players are leaving the continent is widening, especially when we have the likes of Sadio Mane and the rest of them, Mohamed Salah, doing so well for the continent. So there will be a lot of influx of African players in this part of the world going to because they've had the likes of Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah, Alex Iwobi, a lot of them as their idols. So the future is going to only benefit those the Europeans and the rest of the continent where African players reach. But we know we are still going to suffer so much, in the sense that the administrators here need to do so much to enable that the African players here don't leave and there will never be any lack of talent in Africa. Apart from that, it's also, like I said earlier on, that we might be seeing the next, the second African player that will be the World Player of the Year. Since 1995, no other players have come close except Samuel Eto'o, who was nominated in some seasons back. No African players has come close. So the future is bright, but Europe will definitely be the more benefit of this of the future of African players.
All right, Adel Al-Marouki and Madushiru Shitu, thank you both for your insight and analysis. Moving on, this weekend, two African nations laid to rest towering figures in their political scene. More than 2 years after his death in Brussels, Etienne Tshisekedi's body was repatriated to the Democratic Republic of Congo while in Angola. Former leader Jonas Savimbi was finally reburied publicly 17 years after his death. CGTN's Tuli Shabalala has more on that story.
following 3 days of ceremonies honoring his memory. Etienne Tshisekedi was finally laid to rest in a private plot at Ntsele on the outskirts of the DRC's capital, Kinshasa. The veteran politician received a state funeral. Tshisekedi was a revered figure in the opposition for his resistance to former leaders Mobutu Sese Seko and Laurent Kabila. He never got to see his son ascend to the presidency. Presidents from Angola, Rwanda, Zambia, and the Central African Republic came to pay their respects. Meanwhile, in Angola, thousands of supporters of former rebel leader Jonas Savimbi gathered for his public reburial. The ceremony took place in his home village of Lopitanga. Savimbi was killed 17 years ago in a shootout with government soldiers that spelt an end to a long civil war.
Even though you served the country, you are still a father to us, a strict father who taught us values and built our characters.
His remains were finally handed over to his family on Friday following confusion earlier in the week. UNITA says the funeral ceremony will be an important step towards national reconciliation in the oil-rich nation.
We come here to honor your memory. Thank you. You were, you are, and you'll always be the builder of our country.
Etienne Tshisekedi and Jonas Savimbi will be remembered as towering figures in the Congolese and Angolan political scene. Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
And over to Algeria, where the country has been experiencing a population surge over the past year. Now, demographic indicators like average lifespan and child deaths are trending upwards, but deep shifts are beginning to take hold in society as the nation's security and economy improves. Divorce is on the rise, and Algerians may be starting to hold back from marriage. CGTN's Amy McConaughey reports.
Algeria is experiencing a population boom, according to the National Statistics Office. Over 1 year, the number of Algerian inhabitants jumped by almost 800,000 people.
In recent years, Algeria has been characterized by a good security situation, and some Algerian families have experienced improved finances. We are noticing a decline in the percentage of births in recent years and an increase in divorces. This shows a change in the mindset of Algerians, and I think social networks play a role in this.
Experts attribute the population surge to a range of social factors. Life expectancy is slightly increasing as child mortality is decreasing. In 2018, child deaths reached almost 22,000, down by 400 compared to the previous year. However, some believe this upward trend will not carry into the future.
Despite the fact that Algerian youth have become more and more interested in marriage in recent years, because their social conditions have been somewhat better than their political circumstances, I think the general trend in the future is that the number of young people in the society will be greatly reduced due to divorce prevalence, which remains very high.
If Algeria continues on its current trajectory, by the 1st of January 2020, the total resident population could reach 43.9 million people. Amy McConaughey, CGTN.
Well, due to the high rate of violent crime in South Africa, the issue of self-defense is uppermost on the minds of many people. And now a new non-lethal weapon in the form of a wireless stun gun is about to enter the South African market. The manufacturer of the Watto stun gun says this handset is the first of its kind in the world and is a game changer in the self-defense market. Renee Delcarme has more.
The Watto's wireless stun gun looks like a handgun, but it's apparently not as lethal.
It is the first handheld wireless electroshock device on the market.
So what this means is that the cartridge or the barrel of the gun houses 2 projectiles. These can be released independently of each other, and they're not linked to the hand device in any way. So it's much safer for you personally. The range is more effective, and it's safer for your assailant as well.
The Waters is said to have an intense charge with a range of about 8 to 10 meters.
Once the weapon is deployed, you've got 2 shots for each gun. Once it's in situ, you have a first 5-second impulse. It's 1,000 volts. You then, if that's not enough, if your assailant is trying to get up or come back at you, from the device, from the safety of 8 or 10 meters away, you can zap them again or give them another shock. It's for 3 seconds. You can do this 3 times, which will be more than enough to keep anyone down on the ground.
The weapon has adjustable low, medium and high electroshock levels, and other features include a built-in target laser and HD camera.
When you look at the gun, it's pistol-shaped. The entire weight of the device is just 450 grams. So it is reasonably heavy, it's very sturdy. It's made of a high-cast polymer, so it's virtually indestructible. The projectiles themselves weigh 22 grams. So they're heavy enough to withstand any kind of wind. And they are very accurate up to sort of 10 meters. When you purchase a Waters, you don't need any form of firearm license. It's designed to be very simple and easy to use. In fact, if you can use a modern cell phone, you can certainly use a Waters electric stun gun.
The Waters wireless stun gun is expected to be on the market here in South Africa in July. And the Turkish manufacturer says it's also aiming at branching out from South Africa to other parts of the continent in the near future. Renee Dalkam, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
The Chinese embassy in Senegal recently held a party for sick children in Senegal's Diamniadio Children's Hospital. A play park was also launched on the same day to cater for recovering patients. CGTN's Dinah Matengo has more on this story.
About 100 children and their parents participated in the celebration. The official ceremony was chaired by Han Xiaofei, Economic and Commercial Consular of the Chinese Embassy in Senegal, and Fatou Sila Fall, the director of the hospital. To mark the day, China helped inaugurate a play park at the hospital. According to the director, this new park will be expanded and improved by China for the delight of children.
A play park is extremely important. This is a children's hospital. We often have hospitalized children who sometimes get better while waiting to be released. There are other children who come for consultation and are not too sick, so they insisted in installing a park for the children. It adds value that makes it easier for children and their parents to wait. So through my voice of the Minister of Health and Social Action, I warmly thank Sino-Senegalese cooperation.
On the same day, a donation ceremony to celebrate Ramadan was also held. Families of the hospital staff and parents of some children received food consisting of rice, oil and sugar.
Today I am very happy. It is a great pleasure for me to be here to participate in this activity to celebrate the children. As you know, the Chinese government is taking a lot of attention in the field of health to help our Senegalese friends to develop well.
It's a very nice party. Although our children are sick, they are happy. The hospital has a very good reputation because they know how to take care of children. I really thank them and I pray to God for all they did for my child.
Senegal's Diamniadio Children's Hospital is a Sino-Senegalese venture funded by both respective governments. Inaugurated in 2014 by President Macky Sall, it cost over $9 million. Dinah Matengo, CGTN.
And we've got your business news coming up after the break. Here's a sneak peek at the headline. China issues a white paper on trade frictions with the United States.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. The Chinese government has issued a white paper on trade frictions with the United States. China has laid the blame for the trade war squarely on the shoulders of the United States. Officials say China will continue looking forward and building a bright economic future through reform and opening up.
When it comes to trade war, our position is consistent and clear. China does not want to have a trade war, but if it happens, China is not fearful of a trade war.
Strong words from a white paper detailing China's stance on the U.S. trade war. The document contains some of Beijing's strongest rebuttals yet against the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump.
The white paper stresses the economic and trade friction provoked by the U.S. damaged the interest of both countries and the wider world. The U.S. imposed tariffs harm others and are of no benefits to the U.S. itself, impeding two-way trade and undermining market confidence and economic stability. The trade war does not make America great again.
The document says the U.S. has repeatedly gone back on its word during the trade talks. Since early 2018, Washington has threatened to add 25% tariffs on $50 billion in Chinese goods, and another 10% tariffs on $200 billion in Chinese goods. The U.S. has tried to justify its moves by saying China steals intellectual property through forced technology transfers, accusations which Beijing says are groundless. Chinese officials say in the final phase of talks, Washington bullied and imposed extreme pressure, insisting on clauses that would violate China's sovereignty.
The U.S. government should bear the sole and entire responsibility for these severe setbacks in China-U.S. economic and trade consultations. Any agreement reached by the two sides must be based on equality and mutual benefit. China would not back down on major issues of principle.
In the face of these challenges, China says it will redouble efforts to strengthen the country through reform and opening up, and attending to matters at home. Officials say continued supply-side structural reforms will further upgrade products and business competitiveness. And huge domestic demand and healthy fiscal policies will contribute to a bright economic future, with or without outside pressures.
After the historic success of the African Union in launching the Continental Free Trade Area, China, through its ambassador to the AU, congratulated the Commission and vowed to work with the continent in making growth and prosperity a reality. The ambassador said China said both China and Africa should work hand in hand against protectionism from free and fair trade to prevail. The ambassador added China will always be a strong ally to the African continent.
We believe that China and African countries should join forces to fight against protectionism. And on this day, when the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area enters into force, I want to extend my congratulations on this occasion. And I believe China-Africa cooperation under the BRI will contribute to the development of China and Africa.
A team of 6 Nigerian students who emerged third at the recently concluded Huawei Global ICT competition in Shenzhen, China, have returned home to a heroic welcome. At least 49 teams from 30 countries took part in this year's contest. Kelechi Mekalam has more.
A heroic welcome for ICT students from the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. They emerged third place in the Huawei-sponsored ICT Innovations Contest for universities around the world, a position that makes them the best in sub-Saharan Africa.
The reason maybe we didn't even get into the first position is because we didn't have enough
we weren't exposed as much as we wanted, like other students were. But with the level of exposure, if the exposure is increased, or if students have been exposed to better technologies and there is more investment in the ICT industry, students could make it better, because Nigeria, I believe, is a home of unending talents. There are many, many good students that can do better than what we can even do. It's just that they just need the platform.
The contest was launched in 2015. Huawei says the contest is meant to breed a critical mass of highly skilled human resource base in the ICT sector. 50 universities participated in this year's contest. Algeria and Malaysia tied in the first position. China, Spain and Pakistan came second, and Nigeria, Dominican Republic and Iraq took third.
We know that innovation and ICT is not just at the level of infrastructure, but also to ensure that we have capable hands, we have skilled people, and catching these guys at a young age, as young as 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, we know that the future is definitely bright for Nigeria. So that's our big vision, really.
Besides winning the prestigious trophy, the students also stand to benefit from international certifications. And should a job opportunity surface at Huawei, they stand a higher chance. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
And the news continues on Africa Live. We have a lot more wonderful and amazing stories coming up. Here's a look at what's ahead. In Tunisia, Muslims, Christians, and Jews share breakfast in a symbolic gesture of peace and religious tolerance.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. The Tunisian Ministry of Religious Affairs organized a symbolic breakfast in the holy month of Ramadan for Muslims, Christians, and Jews. Tunisian and foreign representatives shared their food and prayed together for peace and religious tolerance in Tunisia and the world. CGTN's Adnan Shawashi filed this report from Tunis.
Tunisian authorities organized the Iftar of Human Brotherhood. The breakfast in the holy month of Ramadan was shared by the official representatives from all religions in Tunisia.
We are all Tunisians. We were born and raised in this land. Jews and Christians are our brothers. Love is our guide in Ramadan. We must focus on our shared values, traditions, and principles to live together in peace.
The chief rabbi of Tunisia attended the national event. Historians assert that Muslims, Jews, and Christians have always lived and worked together.
I'm very happy to share this iftar. This is proof that Tunisia is a land of tolerance, coexistence, and love. All three religions are present here. We all live as human beings with full rights.
The old city of Tunis and several millennial cities across Tunisia testify to the shared traditions and customs between different civilizations, communities, and religions. The Iftar of Ramadan has reinforced this historical fact.
I feel very honored tonight and very happiness because the Minister of Religion invite all the people of religions here to eat together in this iftar, and this is have a big meaning. The meaning is this: that all the people even we are Muslim or Christians or Jews, we must have love between each other and must have peace.
As a Mediterranean and North African country, Tunisia has always been a melting pot and refuge for people from all origins, religions, ethnic and cultural backgrounds.
The Iftar of Human Brotherhood during the fasting month of Ramadan has become an annual tradition in Tunisia. The ministers of tourism and religious affairs say the initiative aims to show the true image of the North African state as a country of religious tolerance, peace and coexistence. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
And with the end of the holy month of Ramadan fast approaching, Muslim women around the world are looking for that special dress to wear on the day of Eid next week. In Cape Town, clothing designer Khadija Khan says business is booming, with many women in the Muslim community in Cape Town flocking to her pop-up boutique to shop for Eid. Renee Del Carmen has more.
Khadija Khan started making modest clothing at a home-based business nearly a decade ago and opened her first pop-up store in a well-known Cape Town mall at the beginning of April.
Khadija Khan brand is a contemporary modest fashion brand catering for women of most ages. And its tagline is clothes to live in. And why I say clothes to live in? Because I cater for every aspect of your life. Like Eid is around the corner and we've got the most beautiful luxury Eid collection. I've also got the most exquisite, comfortable tracksuits as well as modest dresses.
Khadija says her clothing line was inspired by the struggle of Muslim women to find fashionable, modest clothing.
Muslim women have been struggling for decades finding appropriate clothing to wear in order to observe hijab. And hijab is not just the head covering as a scarf, but also in how we dress ourselves, making sure that none of our body shape is showing.
Her online business took off with the rise of social media. And a few months ago, she got an opportunity to open her first retail store.
Through the Council of Modest Fashion that was established recently, I managed to tender for this space in order to take my business from a home-based business to a retail business. And I managed to get a pop-up space for the next 3 months. And it's been absolutely phenomenal.
Khadija Khan fell in love with designing and sewing clothes as a young girl, helping her mum make wedding dresses. Today, she says her brand of modest designs is all about making women feel beautiful and confident in her clothes.
I think it's good to have stores like this coming up because it's very difficult as a Muslim woman to find modest clothing in the normal stores.
You can dress nice, casual, long dress, long skirt, pants to match with it, and it's actually nice. I like it.
I love the Khadija Khan stuff. It's very easy to wear, hijabi wear. So us Muslims, we wear long clothes, and that's what I find easy, just to pull it off and to wear it. I found this dress and she's actually going to alter it for me the way I want.
It's been an exciting journey being in this pop-up store because I've gone from being a home-based business where I've employed maybe 2 full-time staff and 1 part-time staff to employing 6 full-time staff. And that has really encouraged me to really take this business serious and really grow this brand, to grow the Khadija Khan brand, because the possibilities is endless.
Renee Del Carmen, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
In the heart of the Ivorian capital, Abidjan, is a cultural village called Kigi. Here one can learn dance, song, theater, instruments, crafts, and many other cultural professions. Several young people of various nationalities have passed through this village before going on to enjoy successful careers as accomplished artists. CGTN's Dinah Matengo reports.
These young people are mostly out of school and some are orphans. At Village Key, they receive training in various cultural professions such as puppetry, percussion, artistic dance and many more.
I like dance, acrobatics and puppetry. I dream of being known globally, just like Damien Walters and other big names in acrobatics. I really like art and I would like to deepen my knowledge in this field because I know that through art I can succeed in my life.
Personally, I dream of continuing being a puppeteer as a profession. I really like this job. Through the puppets, I want to raise awareness. I also want to produce shows and, if possible, create one day my own foundation.
Every Friday night at the village, a show is open to the public, taking the audience on a trip to ancestral Africa with African rhymes and dance steps.
Frankly, I'm very proud to have finally participated in a show at Village Key. A very special mention to these young people who really exploded on stage through this dance and choreography. They are really talented. I wish them all well for the future.
We have in our cultures a lot of tolerance and values that can help the world to get out of the cycle of violence in which it is in today. The celebration of the International Day of Africa or African cultures is ultimately evidence of global awareness that Africa is not simply a breadbasket, but above all, a sanctuary.
In 30 years of existence, the village Kii has trained more than 500 young people. Many of them have become professional musicians in Cote d'Ivoire and in the West African sub-region. Dina Matengo, CGTN.
And we've got your sports news coming up after the break. Don't touch that dial. Here's a sneak peek at the headline. Andy Ruiz stops Anthony Joshua to become first ever Mexican heavyweight boxing champion.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back, and we begin with boxing news and